Hey everybody, welcome to Inside Quest. We are the ace serve for your mind. Our goal is to bring on really amazing people who can help you spike your intellect. And if you're looking to brush the sand off your brain, there's really no better guest than the woman joining us today. She is an athlete, model, mother, author, and fitness leader. And I don't mean she dabbles in that stuff. I mean she's an absolute legend. This woman is not for play. Clocking in at a powerful 6 foot 3 inches tall, she dropped her red hot modeling career in '92 to focus on volleyball full-time, and that decision has paid dividends. She's gone on to become a champion pro beach volleyball player, winner of Offensive Player of the Year, and the first female spokesperson for Nike. And it is not hard to understand why. She's an amazing mixture of brains, beauty, and brawn, and her unparalleled drive has allowed her to compete professionally while 5 months pregnant. What? But the most amazing thing is that she's never afraid to open up and be vulnerable as well. She is a delicious cocktail of raw competitor and unguarded advocate for people trying to make change in their lives. Her raw passion for fitness has turned her into one of the most sought after voices in the industry, and she's now the charismatic host of NBC's new primetime big budget reality show, Strong. She's also the creator of High X Training, a high-intensity group fitness program designed to inspire men and women worldwide. And together with her husband, legendary surfer Laird Hamilton, she co-founded another training program, this one water-based, called XPT. She's also spoken at TEDMed on innovations in health and medicine, and she continues to encourage people the world over to get active and live more fulfilling lives. Please help me in welcoming the creator of the first woman's shoe to outsell the Air Jordan, the best-selling author of Big Girl in the Middle and My Foot is Too Big for the Glass Slipper, a guide to the less than perfect life, the astonishing Gabrielle Reece.
Sorry guys, I just had my knee replaced 10 days ago. So, I am a little stiff.
I think we're all impressed that you're up and mobile, and that we set death traps for you is just mean.
I'm so sorry. No, that's good. I have to work on the flexion.
Nice.
No, the joke was when I scheduled this, I thought, oh, 10 days.
That's a lifetime. It'll be all good.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Going through, when I heard that you had performed at the professional level while 5 months pregnant.
Yeah, that's not that unusual though. I have to say, like Carrie Walsh and quite a few other volleyball players, that's as long as you can do it safely, and because you're coming into it, your body's sort of fit already, and so it's not like you get the news that you're pregnant and now you're saying, okay, I'm going to go out and train like a maniac.
Right.
There's even a great distance runner from England, and she was running, I mean, way beyond like 7-8 months pregnant.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I think that it's not that unusual. When I hear that bio, I think, how many years do you have to live to hear all that stuff? I was like, oh.
Yeah, and you really did make amazingly good use of your time. And you said that you had an early insight, that you were really aware that there were opportunities that were available to you. You wanted to take advantage of them. It's actually one thing I wanted to talk about. How did you come to that realization? Like, you really seem to develop mentally quite early.
Well, I don't know about that. I think it's just about survival. I think from where I came from, I grew up in the Caribbean, and I always laugh that I was moved out of there my junior year of high school, that I probably would have had a kid at 19 and worked in a gift shop if I had not left, you know? And so I think for me, it was just about surveying the landscape in front of me. So when I went to college and kind of fell into playing volleyball on a scholarship, I felt really fortunate, and then I fell in love with the game. And then when I had the opportunity to turn professional, you have to still understand what the limitations are. And so beach volleyball is a very niche sport, and there's only so many opportunities. So if you say, hey, I'm going to take all my eggs and dump it into that basket, sometimes that can maybe bite you a little bit later.
Sure.
So I think I was always navigating, following things that I thought I could do well, that I had a skill set for, but also, again, back to survival. I think, you'll talk to a lot of athletes or performers, and fear and certain things are big motivators, right? And whether that's good or not, you try as you go to be motivated by more positive things, but maybe initially.
And when you say that they're motivated by fear, what fear?
Well, you have fear of failure. You have fear of maybe living Maybe as a kid, if you grew up in one type of reality and you say, hey, I don't want that type of reality for my adult life. So fear of maybe being stuck into something that you used to know and trying to develop something new for yourself. I think there's a lot of different types of fear. And for me, I think at the end, I sort of looked at myself and said, okay, who do you think you are? What do you think you're interested in? What do you think you can do decently? And do all those things that you can. So while I was competing, playing pro ball, I started writing and I started doing television, but more as also to broaden my skill set because I knew already the limitations in volleyball. But yet volleyball, I spent 90% of my time training and preparing for and competing. But that probably made me about 15% of my revenue.
Wow.
But it was where I learned all my lessons because it's the real thing. You can't phone it in.
Yeah.
And seeing yourself in uncomfortable situations, I think, is really important. And training and competing and winning and losing, there's a lot of honesty in that. So I think that was really important for me too, is to do something that was really honest, that I couldn't phone in, but then kind of these other things, see if I could develop a legitimate skill set.
Talk to me about that honesty. That's something that I think is super intriguing to people. I think finding one's voice is incredibly difficult, finding that authentic way for you to live your life. And every interview I've listened to you in your books, everything, like, you're not afraid to be raw. You're not afraid to be vulnerable. You're not trying to pose or paint like a phony picture. But that comes from confidence, for sure. How did you get to the point where you were able to say, okay, this really is the way of it, and I want to send it out there to help other people?
Well, I think, like, when you talk about fear, you have other fears, like fear of being a fraud or fear of misrepresenting yourself. So I think it's about trying to be as genuine as you can, because the other side of that is the other way is not sustainable, right? So when you're portraying, like Laird always says, he's the most direct, honest person I've ever met. Sometimes uncomfortably, I start sweating. Like when we get into situations with people, I go, here it comes. But he's like, listen, I never have to remember what I say because I just tell the truth. Right. And I think sometimes if you're creating an image that is inconsistent with who you are, it'll come back and bite you later. Yeah. And it's, I'm not 20 anymore. I'm not the girl who had the Nike shoe anymore. So how do you then genuinely keep reflecting who you really are so you can live in that space? Because to try to be who you were is like a punishment. It's a sentence. When you come from sports, you look good, you look bad, and you get okay with that. So that was probably helpful.
Talk to me about some of the self-narrative. So you're 6 foot by the age of 12. I imagine
I can't even walk. That's still there.
No discount for the knee surgery, of course. But,
no.
But so you have a pretty unique, not easy youth. You're very tall, and you said it's not like people were telling me, oh my gosh, you're amazing, you're beautiful. They were saying, you're gigantic.
Sure.
So that had to play into your self-narrative. But then what you go on to accomplish is truly breathtaking. Walk us through, like, how it started in your head, how it changed, how you took control of it.
Well, let's be clear. A lot of life is about timing. And so I also came in at the right time. Okay, if I was 5 years earlier, I would have been too soon. If I was 5 years later, someone would have already done it. So I was also at the right place at the right time. But when I was young, I didn't always live with my parents. My dad died when I was 5. I had enough friction that I think sometimes when you have some adversities, you go within yourself. And the fact that I was 6 feet at 12 and I would go to a new school and they thought I was a substitute teacher, not one of the students, you start to go, oh, okay, who do I think I am? And instead of relying, because I was never going to be like everyone else. I was never going to look like one of the cute girls. So I had to get past that really quickly. And then when I was 18 and I was already playing ball in college and started working in New York, and the people are like, oh, fabulous. You didn't buy into that either. Because that's important too, because it goes up and down. And so if you buy into when it's up, like, hey, I'm really great, that doesn't work either. I think it's staying connected to how do I feel about myself. And I'm understanding, like, for example, this is a hard time. And is my self-worth going to be wrapped up in how successful I am? Or is my self-worth going to be wrapped up in my relationships and how I'm acting as a person, and those types of things? So I had that really early, naturally. I think what was also helpful, I know this sounds odd, I had a really, really beautiful mother. And so I lived with somebody who was really beautiful. And then when I was modeling, and I've talked about this before, and playing volleyball simultaneously, I would go to work in New York, girls so beautiful you couldn't even look at them, right? Like really, you go, wow, is that how, you know? And they didn't seem more confident to me, or like they were having more fun. And then I go to Tallahassee and go back to practice, and girls were 6'1" and trying to get bigger and eating way too much, maybe a couple blemishes, big butts, you know? And they seemed way more fun and way more confident. And so really that by 18, I was like, the appearance of perfect beauty or whatever clearly is not the answer to being happy. It can be a bonus, but it's not the answer.
Right.
So I think those things kind of helped me navigate that really early.
That's so interesting to see you be able to analyze, like, okay, here I'm with some of the most astonishingly beautiful people on the planet. And so keep in mind, I'm a guy of a certain age. So for me, growing up, you were the model. You were on MTV. You were for everyone else that thing that you saw in them, right? So it's this sort of bizarre recursive thing where everyone's looking at you going, oh my gosh, she's the picture of perfection, I can never be that. You're looking at them going, they're the picture of perfection, I can never be that.
Right.
But you had an insight, and the insight was that doesn't seem to be making them happy, which then changes your self-narrative. The reason this is so interesting to me is I really believe at the end of the day, a person is sort of the sum total of the narrative that they tell themselves.
Right.
And if you tell yourself, I'm the awkward 6-foot girl who's never going to be one of the cute girls, and that's what I really want to be, you don't become the professional volleyball player who's got the drive, the grit, the determination. And one story that you guys may have already encountered, would be so awesome if you talked about, is when,
I can't wait to hear it.
when they asked you to be a professional golfer.
Oh yeah? Mm-hmm.
And you said, you know what I find interesting about that is it would be a chance to continue working hard towards something.
Yeah.
But the story finishes pretty interestingly, and I'd love to get your insights on that.
So I got an offer when I was about 30. I was not a golfer. And so for any of you who play golf, I think golf and surfing are sports that you should probably start when you're really young. But I picked up volleyball late, so I was like, practice, how hard, it's a formula, how hard can it be? Because the idea for me to extend out my athletic life was really exciting to me. Because I realized that environment, like when people talk about training, it's not that, I love to go and bang iron. It's not that, it's I like that when you work hard, you've genuinely accomplished something for yourself. Yeah. So I looked at that and I practiced for many years, many hours. It put a big strain on my marriage. In fact, we almost got divorced at that time. And then I had my second daughter, and I ran out of time. So from there, I thought, okay, one club. I started doing long drive world championships.
Wow.
Because I could practice and just focus on one club. But then the whole thing just fell apart. But the thing I learned from that was, I actually put, and this is really important, I think, for anyone and anything that they're going to do in their life. I played volleyball because I fell into it, and I fell in love with the game, and it happened. Golf, I put the end goal first and not the process. I was so focused on, I want to try to get my card, that I was actually not enjoying any of it. I was just grinding it out. And so that really was a big lesson for me about following things that you truly believe in and like and enjoy, because when it's not going well, you can still get after it. Because that was a very humbling and an important lesson for me with golf. And I spent about 3 solid, when I say solid, like 8 hours at the golf course, hitting thousands of balls, flying to Vegas to get coaching, flying to Arkansas, like doing it. And it was not a success.
Wow. That story is so powerful to me because of the punchline of one of the things I did right and one of the things that I did wrong. And really to understand that, like, because my life, like you could have ended up being working in a gift shop somewhere on the island. I very easily could be, doing whatever menial task. I used to consider myself the king of remedial jobs. I said it with pride. Like I didn't want to challenge myself because I was afraid that I would fail.
Sure.
I was just totally watching that, and my self-narrative had become that, right? That here's where I'm really good, and oh my gosh, everybody thinks that, oh, you should move on. What are you doing here? And so I was getting that feedback, but I was getting it at the lowest possible level in a job. So to know sort of how your life can bifurcate, I know how many people, they create this end goal that they have in mind and they chase it. And I understand the value of that. That's how I got out of remedial jobs. But then I just put myself in another trap. And I spent 8.5 years of my life chasing money, like really hard. I was as committed to making money as you were to golf. But it had nothing to do with the process. In fact, the story I told myself about the process, it is a process of suffering. And this is a question of how much suffering can I endure? And if I can endure enough suffering, all will be well. If I can't endure enough suffering, then it won't. And then, of course, in the end, I couldn't endure the suffering. So I rebel against it, and I say, I learned the lesson in reverse. Now I'm going to do the thing that I'm passionate about. I'm going to tap into something that I really believe in. I don't care where it goes. I just want to enjoy the process. I want to fall in love with this. And then that becomes, obviously, the greatest success that my partners and I have had, was leading with passion and something. Watching you put those pieces together and seeing how it informs your self-narrative, I think is so powerful. So taking all of that, what are you going to teach your daughters?
Oh, geez, they don't listen to me. That's the running joke. I have 3 daughters. They're 8, 12, and 20, and they're dynamic humans. And that's another thing. Everyone who knows who has children, you certainly don't control them. You don't want to live through them. This is what I tell my daughters. I say to them that no matter what happens in life, when you build a home or a building, it does have a foundation. Whether it was 100 years ago or it's today, it always has a foundation. So as a person, what's your foundation? It's honesty, it's hard work, it's self-respect, it's respect to others. And then I said, whatever the building is, the color, the window shapes, the style, that's on you. It's your life, it's your destiny, it's your path. I will do my very best, and I say that light now, but I say it very threatening at home, to make sure that foundation is there. But it's trying to get them in touch with who they are, but also making sure that you hit the fundamentals, because you could be wildly talented, and my girls they're attractive girls, but if you don't have that foundation and you don't have that work ethic, it's all for naught, kind of. And the other thing, and I've said this a lot, if my only currency was, or if the currency I was bringing was beauty, or athletics for that matter, there's a time frame on that. And so the idea is to become richer in certain ways as we get older, not poorer. And so if beauty was my currency, then my apex was about 20 years ago, probably. And so I think it's trying to get them to understand, you're not doing it for me. It's like I tell them, I go, I have friends, I have work, I figured parts of it out. This is a conversation for you. So, but it's tricky. And I'll tell you right now, parenting kids with this whole, Instagram and all this stuff has a whole other layer that I'm actually not quite sure always how to navigate.
Yeah, sure, I bet. That concept of currency is so strong. Like, that's really amazing. I've never thought of it like that in my life, but that is really, really useful. How did you come to that notion? Like, were you at 20 saying my currency is beauty and I know that could be a potential problem? How were you thinking through it back then?
I understood really quickly the limitations of physical appearance, and I don't know why. I just knew that that wasn't going to be it. And also, again, modeling, you show up. If I show up and they want a 5'8" Asian girl, I'm probably not going to get the job, right? So you sort of learn, well, but when I played volleyball, if I trained harder and my coach worked with me on stuff, I could improve myself.
Right.
And that was in my control. And so even things I do now, we try to create businesses and be entrepreneurial. 50% of them don't happen. 50% schlub along, and then maybe you're lucky if you get one or two that kind of pop out. But that ultimately it's how can I be in charge of things and not be so subjected to other people's opinions, because that's frustrating. So I think I looked at it, and I never play innocent. I never say that I haven't manipulated the system. I certainly have, but it's sort of within reason. And I've always said, like, as long as I deliver authentically and it's not all sizzle, no steak, that, okay, you know, blonde hair, let's put eyelashes, fine. If that's what it's going to take for me to get from here to that door over there, but that I'm ready to work and deliver, fine. But I knew that a long time ago.
That's phenomenal. And guys watching at home or everybody here, like asking yourself what your currency is, like that's a really powerful, I'm literally sitting here, part of my brain now is allocated to figuring out what is my currency, right? What are the things that I'm developing now that are going to serve me moving forward? What are things that maybe I should be developing that will help me? It's such a powerful question, and I know a lot of the people watching the show are younger, and they're trying to find their voice. They're trying to tap into authenticity. And
it's difficult. Listen, I like I said, I have a 20-year-old daughter, and I think it's even harder. We have more people, larger population, and I think there's always a running commentary. So if a younger person wants to put out a thought or an idea, and then everyone jumps on the bandwagon anonymously and tells them their opinion. I didn't have to deal with that growing up, so I could make mistakes, and if people hated me, I didn't have to actually hear about it. Made it a little easier. So I think sometimes young people have to fortify themselves in ways differently than you and I did to protect themselves, their voice, their mission, their dream. Because when people are not happy or frustrated, they sit in a dark room and they go like this. And so you have to separate yourself from that. But I think also, you know, we've gotten very disconnected. And I think it's kind of still about bringing it back. When I go back to the foundation, we still have to bring it back to some things that are really big and important and ground ourselves in those and dream from those types of platforms. Because listen, I've been at this a long time, and if you said to me, how were your 30s? My 30s was dedicated really to my family. And there were days where I thought, oh, I do enough work just to kind of keep that fire stoked. And you know, the notion of relevancy, right? And you deal with like, hey, I'm not relevant, or my Q ratings are low, or all these things that's what you deal with. But I knew at that time the most important thing for me to be doing was to be there for my kids. And now that they're all a little bit older, I'm working again. But I think within a lot of successes are tons of failures. I've already, you know, been a has-been 3 times, I think. You know, people come up to me now, hey, wow, you still look pretty good. You get that? Nice. No, I'm just saying, like, you have to understand what it all is. And the whole thing is when I, you know, like I have a partner that, you know, it's not perfect. I think we have a really good relationship, but someone that I bounce it off, that keeps me grounded. Because really at the end of the day, when we talk about success, sometimes it gets defined as either power, notoriety, money. And I think all of that can be quite nice and useful, but how do I make myself happy? How do I express what's inside my mind and manifest it and make it real? Because that's an incredible feeling. If anyone knows, like, whatever, if you have an idea and you, even on whatever level, you make it real. Relationships, friendships, real friendships, because that's how we grow, right? We can't grow isolated. It's difficult. So I think for me, success has a lot of different angles to it. You know, the running joke in my house is I'll cook and do all the stuff until the kids are out of the house, so they see me doing it and they have to do it. And then I told Laird, you know, after that, then maybe I'm going to stop doing it. But you can't say pick up after yourself, brush your teeth, and do this if you're not doing it yourself. So I just think the idea of success is, well, what does that mean to the individual person? And the individual person might say, yes, that's all fine and dandy, but part of that is a lot of zeros. So you say, okay, that's your thing.
Man, so in the last like 10 minutes, you've gone through so many incredibly powerful things. I want to try and unwind some of them and go a little bit deeper. So being attacked on social media is just that moment where anybody can be attacked, right? So you could be at work and your coworker dislikes you. It could be social media and somebody's coming for you. And I think everybody benefits from learning to self-soothe.
Yeah.
What are some ideas that you have on that? How can somebody become internally resilient?
I heard a great thing about this. So you know how you could get 100 great comments and one bad one and you just mull over the bad, The
Yes.
comedians will tell you they stand up here and the only person they're looking at is the one who's not smiling or laughing, right? But this is an interesting idea. That's part of, almost like survival in that if you were in a situation that maybe something felt threatening, you would recognize it to protect yourself. So I think it's first to understand the mechanism is actually quite normal. Because if everyone's like, hi, it's so great, I love you. You're not like, oh, that's not a threat. But if you see me and I'm looking at you and I'm like this, you're like, well, maybe I should keep an eye on her because, And so I think first it's noting that. And then second of all, it's difficult not to take things personal. But no matter what you do in life, and I've talked about this a lot, 30% of the people will like it. 30% of the people won't care. 30% of the people will hate it, and 10 can't even get to the plate to make a decision, right?
Right.
And so it's, again, more if you have these real connections and friends that go, hey, I care about you and I believe in you, then you learn how to distance yourself from that. It's harder for women than men, younger women especially. We take everything personally. It's very normal. And also understanding, why am I doing it? Am I doing it to please everybody, or am I doing it because I really believe in this and I'm going for it? And then finding your humor in it.
Yeah, so how many times have you found yourself doing something to please other people only to have to sort of backtrack for something sustainable?
Not very often. I stopped doing that a really long time ago. I think I try to be polite. I do try to be a pretty polite person and go the extra, because I think I'm built in a way that I can. But no is a word I use all the time. And the thing I try to teach my daughters is, can you say, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me, without attaching a bunch of feelings and emotions to it? Because usually women have to get worked up, and then, instead of like, oh, I'm sorry, that just doesn't work for me. And it's not a popularity contest, but certainly I try to be as considerate and polite as I can to the people in my life. But I'm pretty selfish that way, that I will try to follow my own
I think
voice.
that's great. I think that's fantastic. So I know you consider yourself a very even-keeled person.
Yeah.
But when the there's no evidence. When somebody comes and knocks you off base, what techniques do you use to find your center again?
A lot of times, again, it goes back to the simplicity of, is it nature, is it God, whatever people need, how they define it. And understanding, first of all, I'm not that significant and my problems are not that big. When I start feeling sorry for myself, I try to get an expansive view, an away view. Even when I'm overreacting, sometimes I try to stand away and go, wow, you're really freaking out, So I think it's when we take ourselves so serious, and I take myself pretty serious, I do. I'm kind of a serious-minded person, but when we take ourselves serious in the way that we think our thoughts and our problems and our thing, it's so serious, then I think we lose the plot a little bit. So really, it's the minute you're kind of off is finding those cues that get us. So that's why exercise is big for me, because it's the quickest, fastest way for me to get medicated, if you will, and find that perspective and that voice. Because I think a lot of people hear and feel and find answers in those moments. And then sometimes you go all the way off, and that's good too, because you learn all the things that you learn when you smack your face and you go, wow, I totally lost the plot, and now I'm going to navigate that differently going forward.
You talk a lot about failure and how powerful it can be, and so how can people use failure? How do they keep it from being destructive? Which is one thing that I see happens a lot. People judge themselves very harshly when they fail. How can somebody turn that into constructive? Is there things they should say to themselves or a certain framework?
I think failure is your ultimate classroom. This is how I look at it, especially when something's going all right. Okay, I go, okay, what is it that I'm supposed to be learning right now? Because if I don't figure that out, I will be here again. And I think it's important to feel it. I think it's important to call your best person and go, you know what, I'm tweaked right now and I'm pissed and I'm frustrated and I'm scared and I'm all those things, and then go, cool. I don't think it's good to eat it, but then it's, what's your plan of action? So it's looking at the failure and going, why did this happen? What are the things I could have done better? What are the things I'm responsible for? What are the things that I can learn from this that will fortify me for the ongoing process? And I think failure is built into our lives as like breathing. It's part of it. So I think not to be so surprised by failure is helpful.
Now, did you ever have a moment, you're on the volleyball court, big moment, and you just mess up? It's one thing to the impressive failure where you still lose, but you look good doing it. It's another to mess up and look goofy as hell and to have made a mistake. What did you do at that moment?
I mean, I probably swore like a truck driver, I'm sure, and apologized intensely to my teammates. I probably lost sleep over it that night, and then you just get on with it. But you know,
talk to me about the just get on with it. Like, is there something?
Over.
Is it just time? You just need time, or are you saying in your head it's over? Stop fixating on it, move forward.
I think it's both. I think as you move on, it gets easier. But I think as you go, what are you going to do? Torturing yourself and going on and on about it. Can you go back and change hitting the ball in the bottom of the net or out for the point, for the game? No, I can't. So I have to move forward. And in order to do that, I need to do that with all of myself, not half of myself distracted about my failures. And the problem is it's grooving patterns, right? So when you fail and you focus on the failure, you're continuing to groove that pattern in your brain. You know, for example, someone would say, okay, if your intention was to hit the line and you missed by this much, instead of going, which I would do, of course, look at the line. Where did you intend for the ball to go? Or what was your intention? Reinforce that pattern and get on with it.
That's super powerful, and I hope everyone is drinking that in. So at moments of failure, I think it becomes completely a mental game, right? And when you fail, and when you fail publicly, visibly, in front of everybody, and you're lying on the ground with egg on your face, at that moment, truly is where champions are born, in my opinion. Because I think most people, they self-protect. They try to minimize what they did wrong. They try to maximize, oh, the sand was bad, these divots, whatever. Like some reason why. They make excuses, some reason why it's somebody else's fault. Instead of asking the question that you're talking about, which is really figuring out, okay, what was I trying to accomplish? How did I go wrong? So that the groove they're laying in isn't one of either avoidance or just shameless beating themselves up. But the groove they wear is one of assessment, one of looking at how they can fix it, and then just focus on doing it.
I think when we fail, you know, I've learned a couple really important things, many things from my husband, but one I've learned, he taught me how to apologize. I'm very prideful, right? And so I had to shift the dynamic to make sure I was reinforcing that I'm not wrong. Not even that I was right, but just that I wasn't wrong, so I wouldn't have to admit that and say sorry. And then also accountability. If you blow it, you blow it. So you know what you say? Hey, you know what? I blew it. I'm sorry. Or just that you take accountability. Because then the other, to keep that story straight, is brutal, right? All that work it takes to defend and deflect, and all you're doing is give it more energy. I heard a great quote. They said that they called Mother Teresa and they said, hey, we're going to do this protest against war. And she said, well, I won't be there. She goes, now if you're going to do a march for peace, I will come. And so I think it's, again, that idea of whatever we're giving energy to, even if it's like, I can't stand that guy, you're just giving it more energy. So I think, again, when we fail, if we can just quickly say, that was me, it makes it easier somehow in the end. But yeah, I wrote a book a couple years ago that I made a comment in the book couched in all these other comments in context about, you know, the book's all about like, hey, how do you make yourself happy? Mostly to females. have a family, still stay self-defined, blah, blah, blah. Well, in the book, I talk about how in the beginning part of my marriage, you know, you're learning rhythm and dancing, and I didn't know that. I didn't have people teaching me that.
Right.
And that I found that I had a partner who was really willing to bring his faculties to the relationship, his strengths, and that I found if I took on the feminine or submissive role, which submissive is in service, not as in I'm a doormat,
Right.
I thought it flowed better in the four walls.
Right.
Doesn't mean I don't go out in the world and be alpha female. And I thought I could easily say that because I was like, oh, look, I've represented being strong all these years.
Right.
I got reamed.
Yeah.
I got totally reamed. Like, oh, you know, thanks for throwing us back into the Stone Ages and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it really interesting. I was for about a day pretty upset. I was in New
Sure.
York, and I had, you know, Katie Couric and I got in a fight. It was all.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, she's like, I don't think my husband and I was even.
Can she
I go,
punch?
even? No, not that kind of fight. She wouldn't have a chance. No, I guess what I'm saying is it was like, people are afraid to talk about things that are messy and uncomfortable. Like if you live in a house and you have a family, even if both people are working, and even if the one is making more money, if she's taken on the female role, somehow she's doing more work.
Right.
It's the way it is if you have kids.
Yeah.
And people go, even. I go, there's no such thing as even and fair. So that was one public way that I really, you know, got smashed pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought don't retract, don't try. You can try to expand your idea, but, and you know, it's over. I survived it, I'm here.
So here's what I think is amazing about what you lived through. You were being authentic. You took your lumps. You've continued to tell the same authentic story, which as somebody who, I don't have an investment in it, I guess, so I'm just hearing one person's position. I think, wow, that sounds really nuanced. It sounds very well thought out. I totally get it. It makes sense. And I wrote down a note, like, this is authenticity at work. And I think sometimes you get beaten up for being authentic. How can you help your daughters find the bravery, because that's what it is, to be authentic, knowing that the only guarantee in an authentic life is that they will get their asses kicked at some point?
I think both Laird and I, you know, Laird might even be at a level of deeper authenticity than I am, and for different reasons. I think being the example, because again, they do not listen to us. We are their parents, right? We can't drive, our music's not good. I mean, you know, it goes on and on. Well, I'm always like, do you know how cool we are? And
Right.
Is to live it and to show that you can survive it, that you can lose and you'll be there the next day, that people will say really mean things to you, and that you're still okay, and that that is part of it. And because again, they see that if you can just really be who you are, then that's probably a good starting point.
Yeah, it's so simple and so profound, and so few people know how to find that voice. Do you think it's tied to confidence? Like, is it that people don't know what their true voice is, or there's so much nuance and weirdness to their authentic self that they don't have the guts to like really be that?
I think it's a lot of things. I think if you grew up in a home where that wasn't encouraged, maybe. See, the good thing is, like in our home, Laird was given a lot of space, and I was too. Basically, our parents were like, you know, not that his mom was busy working, and no one was really around, so I didn't have someone telling me how I was supposed to think and feel and act. You know, girls are taught, well, nice girls do this, right? So we're taught, we have all this conditioning early. So either you get conditioned away from your nature, or you don't have good examples of people who you go, wow, okay, they're really just being themselves. And by the way, I'm really drawn to that. I'm drawn to them. And how do I figure out how to do that in my own life?
The ideology that you have, to me, is so powerful and is so interesting, because when you're playing at the professional level, there's no room for "it wasn't me," right?
No.
There's no room for that. There's only room for, I need to accept that it was me as fast as humanly possible so that I can get better, because my goal is a championship, right?
Right.
So I think a lot about, what is a champion's mind? Like, what does a champion's mind really look like? I don't think you have to play athletics to have a champion's
Not at
mind.
all.
I don't think you have to be in business to have an entrepreneur's mind.
No.
But once you identify, like, here's what a champion does, right? A champion is the one that's practicing a lot longer than anybody else, and they're practicing because they know there's weaknesses in their game that they've got to get better at. So they don't waste time deflecting or creating this weird story that they'll have to go, oh God, like keep trying to make it all make sense. They own it. I made a mistake. It was a colossal mistake, embarrassing, egg on my face. Got it.
Yeah.
Now I'm interested in one thing only.
Yep.
Moving forward.
Do you have any kids?
I do not.
Okay, so any of you who have kids here, I can tell my daughter Brody, hey, go brush your teeth. She will spend 5 minutes debating me what would have taken 3 minutes to do. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's the same thing with that. That amount of energy it takes to create that protection is way more than just, I blew it, I'm sorry, back to business. I think that it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah.
And it's okay to go, we're going to go down this path, and you know what? This wasn't the right path. I think that I don't know anyone in the history of time who just got it right all the way through. And so I think, to your point, that's really a liberating thing.
No question, totally agree. You said something in one of your interviews that I read, and you said, many things in my life have been beautiful, incredible, but none of it's come easy.
Yeah.
How have you had the tenacity to stick it out to get to the beautiful?
I think I know, and I knew a long time ago, maybe when I got to college, that I was really fortunate that I could do things that I really loved doing, like playing volleyball and working in health and fitness and connecting with people, that it's a gift to me. And so I should maximize the gift and pay attention to the gift and take care of the gift and cultivate the gift and not overlook it. And so every day, some days better than others. I think I'm very well aware of feeling, I mean, you hear this a lot, people are happier when they feel gratitude, and it seems
So
silly and like, you know, but it's very true. When you can see what's good in your life and when you can be grateful for those things, I think you can experience, you know, the feeling of the happiness. So that creates a tenacity because you understand that you're fortunate. So you stay tenacious because you know, hey, yo, this is an opportunity. These are opportunities. And the minute you stop understanding that or seeing that, I think, or the minute you think you know it all or you've arrived or whatever that means, is the minute it goes like that. But understanding,
So
like,
true.
hey, this is a moment. I'm going to give it all I have. And sometimes that works out better than other times. But once you kind of know the formula and you believe in it, you just keep at it. But it does help to have people around you that feel similar, that help you, that know how to give you that talk when you need it. That's really important.
That's awesome. Tenacity from gratitude. I've never had somebody put that together before, but I think that's really strong. What's your definition of a life well lived?
I think when your life reflects who you genuinely are on the inside, your best part of yourself. You know, I think we have high and low parts of ourselves, high frequency, low frequency. And so I think when our life reflects sort of maybe our gifts and our best qualities, it's consistent. The inside and the outside's consistent. I think that is a life well lived because somehow you've managed to have them line up. And even if it's only in certain spots. And I believe, and I think this is important for people to know, you have to define it whichever way makes sense for you. Right. I don't think it's fair to say, it's like when people are dating a long time, so when are you gonna get married? Maybe they don't wanna get married. Maybe they're happy just that way. Maybe a woman is dedicated herself to her career and she genuinely is excited. Are you gonna get married? Are you gonna have kids? And so I think it's also for people to understand, you have to define it in the way that is true and right for you. And in the end, no matter what you do, you will have at least done that.
That's awesome and so spot on, as so many of the things that you say are. Gabby, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show, especially injured. This was amazing.
Are you guys going to carry me off the stage?
Yes.
You should see my exit.
Yeah, I am sorry we tried to kill you at the beginning,
no,
but you proved to be a worthy opponent.
Okay.
So amazing.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Guys, I hope you have enjoyed this episode as much as I have. There are some major things that I'm going to be taking away from this, not the least of which is authenticity. And when you dig into her, when you really look at what she's done, and oh my God, I can't believe some of you are so young, you don't know what this woman is. But when you see her career, when you see somebody that has a modeling career that's on fire, man, she was killing it. She was everywhere, MTV, the whole nine. And she walks away from it. Why does she walk away from it? Because she wanted something that would allow her to work hard to a given end. She wanted currency. She wanted to be able to create something that was more than beauty. Beauty is transient for us all. Like, it goes away. We all become bag of bones in the end. But at the end of the day, if you've done something with that passage of time, if you've turned that into something, if you've turned it into the currency of talents, and then you can connect and you can find your authentic voice and you can live a life where your inside and your outside are in alignment because you know who you are and you know what you're trying to accomplish. I can think of no greater message to take from anyone, somebody who's achieved success at the highest level, who says, but that's not the part that's really made me feel fulfilled. The part that's made me really feel fulfilled is that I found my voice and that I found people with whom I can express it and I found people that I can connect with, that when I'm down, I can say I'm down and I can just own it and that they can help me get back up. It is a beautiful tale, Gabby. I'm not kidding, especially as somebody who knew of you, but is just now meeting you. It is beautiful, it is transformative, and it has been an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So,
I want to say one last thing to
please.
everyone, and Laird and I have experienced this a lot living in Kauai and here, is this notion of all these electronics have disconnected us. And I think in the end, if you say to me, why have I been allowed to be successful? And it's because I do have a good community around me, and I want to encourage people wherever they live to create communities for themselves. Great. Because I think that that is a force that is a support system that really is important, and I think that we're losing some of that community instead of cooperation.
It's interesting.
You know, we've gotten very combative, and so people, you know, when we talk about strength, yeah, there's strength, but real strength has the other side too. So if, you know, wherever people are, they can do that, you know, if they're in college or they're in business or whatever, to create those communities.
That's awesome. Guys, I hope you'll do just that, and I hope you will take advantage of the Inside Quest community. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, and if you haven't already gone to InsideQuest.com to check out all the other cool stuff that we have, please be sure to do so. We will be watching, responding, communicating. For us, truly, the community is everything. It's the reason that we do this show. So thank you guys so much for being a part of it, and until next time, be legendary, my friends. Take care.
Thank you.
Gabby, thank you so much.
Thank you.